Good morning, Smogon. Hope you're all doing well today. My name is MANNAT, and I'm here for an SPL Gen 6 Overuse commentary. This one will be a solo commentary. Here we have a battle between Paprikaflow and GeniusX. Both players substituted into the tier about halfway through the season because the slot on their team was struggling and have put up admirable performances. If you look at GeniusX's team, this is a pretty well-known team created by X-Ray that focuses on using the immense offensive pressure exerted by Charizard along with Weavile as a supporting offense and a solid defensive backbone, whereas Paprikaflow has sort of like an assortment of threats on a bulky offense that isn't typically seen in tandem with one another. An interesting thing about this team is 3 team members weak to Stealth Rock, but no way to remove hazards. Unless that is a defog Zapdos with pressure. Now starting off the battle, we see a Kyurem Black lead into Charizard. Now this team is typically going to be using some sort of mixed wall breaker Kyurem Black, usually focused on physical offense, Fusion Bolt, Iron Head for Clefable, Roost, etc. The Kyurem is going to drop here if this is a Mega Charizard Y, which this team does typically use, and uses a Focus Blast. It does live a Flamethrower, so that's something that GeniusX has to consider. Turn 1, we see the Charizard Mega Evolve and use an Overheat to one-hit KO the Kyurem. You don't usually see Overheat on Charizard because a lot of the times you want to attack multiple times in a row, but there is a spot right there where you see the extra power really coming into handy. The Landorus comes in on the Charizard as a Flamethrower comes out, so you see this actually has 2 different fire moves, Flamethrower and Overheat. The turn after, GeniusX misses an Overheat that likely would have taken out the Landorus and eats a Smackdown. So obviously Genius has to be a little bit concerned about the HP on the Charizard, and Paprika does smartly switch out to Zapdos now that he's done what he wanted to with the Landorus, as Overheat misses again, which is pretty brutal because now the Zapdos can just attack. Uses Volt Switch on the switch to Excadrill there. You see the Excadrill use Rapid Spin to get rid of those hazards for the Charizard, as the Zapdos has a pretty free Heat Wave and gets pretty lucky with a crit. Normally, that Heat Wave would not KO the Excadrill, and something that I did neglect to mention is that the Zapdos did show the ability Pressure, and in Generation 6, if a Zapdos has Static, that means it can't have Defog. So typically when you see a Pressure Zapdos, that means it's going to have a Defog set, which makes sense given the notes about the team construction that I gave earlier. So Excadrill does go down as Heatran does come out to threaten out the Zapdos with like a Lava Plume or a Toxic and either fire off a Lava Plume or get up Stealth Rock, as we see Stealth Rock go up. Landorus is trying to set Stealth Rock back up as GeniusX takes that turn to aggressively switch into Charizard. This is a principle you see a lot in Gen 6 OU, because the hazard removal isn't as robust as a future gen like Gen 7 with the defog on something like Tornadus and Landorus and Static Zapdos and Serperior even. You have to play to punish the turn that Stealth Rock gets used so that you're still able to make progress and do well in the game, whereas in some of those newer generations with more defog users, you can play a little bit more passively and sort of crutch on the attributes of your team. So now the Charizard is going to throw out a Flamethrower, take out the Landorus, as Serperior comes in, threatening a KO on the Charizard with a Hidden Power Rock or Leaf Storm. Heatran comes in here, and a Sun-boosted Lava Plume is not going to be great to switch into for anyone on this team, as the Serperior does use Glare and just gets taken out by that Lava Plume in exchange. Gyarados is going to come in here. Obviously, Gyarados wants to try and Dragon Dance up and sweep. As you can see from this team, it's not looking great into a Gyarados. It's going to be the Mega on this team. There's no other Pokemon that can be the Mega. And you see a little bit of a core here with Gyarados and Bisharp. Double Darks trying to overload one another's checks. One that comes to mind in particular is Keldeo. You can knock that off with Bisharp so that Gyarados can take it out at +1 later in the match. And they work pretty well in tandem with one another. In this spot, the Gyarados probably wants to set up either Dragon Dance or Substitute to try and get that sweep underway. If it has Substitute, it probably would click it here in order to have that protection against Lava Plume. But one thing to consider is that Heatran does run Roar a lot more often in Gen 6 OU these days. It was kind of popularized a couple years ago by that Fade team with Cofagrigus. And since then, it's been a solid option to sort of delay the threat of Clefable so that without needing to use Magma Storm plus Taunt and have a generally more consistent set. And right here, you do see the Gyarados Mega Evolve and Substitute as the Heatran does get the Roar off and phases out that Gyarados into Bisharp. Bisharp is really not what you wanted to see here as Paprikaflow, as Heatran is just going to be able to stay in and Lava Plume that. And he does get a little lucky with the burn there. If Heatran got paralyzed, Bisharp could have been a big threat. As you can see, the team doesn't really have a great Bisharp answer. You would have likely had to rely on Weavile to revenge kill it, but now Superior can just kind of come in and take nothing from that Sucker Punch. As Paprikaflow is going to go out into Zapdos here. The Superior is going to Synthesis up on the Heat Wave. What that's telling me is that this Superior probably does not have Hidden Power Rock, as that move likely would have been clicked there to do as much as he could to the Zapdos before being taken out by Heat Wave. But instead, at this stage, GeniusX smartly realizes that going for a Heat Wave miss has a better equity than trying to do an HP fire just to get some damage, because this Zapdos is going down to Weavile Icicle Crush either way. So trying to get past the Zapdos so that you can glare the Gyarados would be a little bit preferable. Icicle Crush comes out on the Zapdos, takes it out, and Gyarados comes in. Weavile is going to want to stay in here, as if you switch out on a Dragon Dance, it's a lot more likely that you can lose and get swept than if you stay in and get your damage. Obviously, there's the chance of Icicle Crush flinching, but ultimately that's not a huge consideration. Here, Slowbro comes out, and the Gyarados is going to crunch into Colbur Berry and get paralyzed, which is going to be pretty tough for Genius to get through. But one interesting thing to consider here is that the Slowbro set that this team often runs is Flamethrower, Future Sight, Thunderwave, Slack Off. And Flamethrower is usually not going to be able to take out a Gyarados from 13%. So if the Gyarados can break through the confusion, through the paralysis with a crit, it's possible with a high roll that it can take the game here. So let's see what happens. The Slowbro Flamethrowers breaks through the paralysis, but no critical hit. And Slowbro's going to take the game home with Flamethrower. Very fast and furious game with two offensive teams. And GeniusX's early lead with that Charizard and Heatran combo and the Sun Boosted Fire moves just did enough damage to Paprika's team that he couldn't quite clutch it in the end. That combined with the Colbur Berry on Slowbro gave Genius just enough to clutch out this end game. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to catch these battles live, feel free to watch our streams on Sunday. Those streams can be found both on here on YouTube and on Twitch, as we dual stream to both platforms. Make sure to like the video if you did, subscribe for more similar content, and have a wonderful day.